All right. Thank you. Wow. This is very fancy. Didn't expect this. My name's Mike Uguccioni. I went to Ferris like 25 years ago, if you can believe that. Long time ago. Today I'm a visual effects supervisor, producer, and an animator, digital artist. You got to kind of wear a lot of hats to stay busy in this business and make money, so you got to do a lot. I've worked in the motion picture business for 25 years, television, commercial, music video, a little bit of everything. I've been trying to make it back up here for like the last 25 years, and I go up to Mackinac. We're going to swing by, and it's like, try getting your wife to leave Mackinac, you know, it's like, and come to Big Rapids again, so it's like, we just never been able to make it back, and I finally made it. My memory, I showed up here yesterday, is like, I don't remember half the stuff that was here, all these new buildings. It's pretty amazing. And across the street, you have that entire city over there that wasn't here when I was here. So it's kind of like going, it's kind of like being in high school and going back and visiting your kindergarten class. It's a weird feeling. One of my first classes at Ferris was in the fall. It was the year was 1988. My instructor was Mr. Fred Hyman. I believe it was his first class as well at Ferris State University. Sorry, I stepped off the plane and from California, and boom, I'm like sick. So my voice is a little scratchy. Hopefully I don't lose it halfway through it. So anyways, so I'm in Fred's class. I don't even know what the class was, but we had like X-Acto knives and stencils and tracing paper, and I think we were making title cards for something we could shoot and put into a TV show, something you could do in like 2 seconds on a computer today, and which took like 4 hours back then. But I was like, this is cool. This is college. I can do this. This is no big deal. Fred's classes got a little bit harder. And Mr. Jeff Nagy, another teacher here, his classes were pretty tough as well. I don't know if anyone remembers the multi-room wall project slideshow nightmare. You had to program and pray to God it didn't slip out of sync or your slideshow reel didn't get knocked over and fall out on the floor. And Clayton Rye, taught the film department, screenwriting, animation. So those three guys, those were like my favorite teachers. Those are the guys I remember that really pumped me full of knowledge and put some stiff deadlines on me, and pushed you through a sort of creative environment, and that really changed my direction. So. So anyways, I graduated a few years later in 1992. I had a degree in audio-visual production. That's the X-Acto knives and barbaric stuff that we had, which was state-of-the-art at the times, but compared to today. And I had a bachelor degree in television production. So I got out of school, started looking for work. I live in southern Michigan with my parents, and I was having a tough time trying to find work. You're in school for 4 or 5 years and partying and enjoying life, and then all of a sudden you got to get a real job, and it takes a little time to figure that out, how to how to actually get a job and how that actually works. So I would get jobs as a PA on commercials, really boring stuff, cabinet commercials, industrial car training videos. And I remember Clayton was always like, you got to go talk to people, you got to go network, you got to get to know people and get in with them, and they'll remember you and they'll hire you back. So that's what I was. That's basically what I did. I was on this cabinet sales commercial, and I was talking to the actors, and I was like, "Hey, man, have you done any theater work or movie work?" He's like, "No, I haven't, but I just got the lead in this low-budget movie that's starting in a few months, and it's called Skeeters. I was like, Skeeters? What is that? It's like, it's like mosquito. So I was like, what is it? What is it about? He goes, well, it's basically about this alien spaceship that crashes in the swamp, and the body falls out, and a mosquito flies down and bites the alien and sucks the alien blood up into the mosquito, and the mosquitoes all of a sudden, because of the blood, the alien blood, they grow 500 times their size, so they're as big as people. And they swarm and attack campers in campgrounds. I was just like, this is the greatest thing I've ever heard of in my life. I got to work on this. Give me the guy's number. So, gave me the producer's number, and I was calling him. I was like, hey, man, I'll come in. I'll work for free. I'll do whatever you want. I really want to work on your movie. Can I get the script? And so he's like, yeah, it's not going to be for a few months. Just keep in touch, and we'll call you back. So every month I would call him and bug him. And in the meantime, I was like, okay, I got to get a job because this freelance thing isn't really working out as a PA. It's very sporadic. Started calling my friends from school, Ferris. Called up Tom Nichols. And Tom Nichols was working at a news station. He's like, hey, they're looking for a videographer. Call this guy. I told him about you. You're hands-on. You don't need any training. You can just start as a videographer. So I called him up, went in there, and got the job. So I was basically doing. I was a news videographer. That was my first real gig. So shout out to Tom Nichols, if you remember Tom. So it's basically. I'm basically at a real news station. It was WILX TV 10 in Lansing, Jackson. Tim Stout, I don't know if you remember them. And I would basically show up at work. I would pick up the tapes in Jackson, and then I would have to drive them to Lansing to the studio. Why? Because there was no internet. There was no way to really send files, 3/4-inch tape, Betacam, quickly, other than a microwave, and that was always kind of dodgy. So I would drive them to the set, and then when I got to the studio, I would get to Lansing, I would basically start my day with the reporter of the day. And they would have a scripted story, and we'd drive to the mall or wherever we had to go, and I would basically shoot the story, and he would talk in your typical E&G fashion. And there was other stuff. There was fires and police chases and sports and weather. There was all kinds of stuff to do. So it was a really good experience for me. I liked it. But what I didn't like about it was whatever you shot that day went on the air in a few hours. And you really had to be really good. There was really no time to perfect anything. It was everything was live, and I was always like, I want to color correct this and try to make this look better. If I could just smooth this out. And so I didn't like that aspect of it. But I stayed with it, and all of a sudden the producer calls me for the Mosquito movie. He's like, hey, we're starting at the end of the month. 3 weeks. I was like, I'm there. So I'd worked as a videographer about 6-7 months. Put in my 2 weeks notice to go work for free on a low-budget movie in Detroit. You can imagine how that went over with my parents after they just paid 4 or 5 years of college tuition to send me to school, and I'm quitting to go work for free. So anyways, it worked out. I went, showed up there. It was in a really terrible part of town in Dearborn. It was in this old abandoned factory. It was dirty, and there was like 5 other guys that were just like me and that wanted to work on movies. And we started cleaning it out, bringing in sets, and the guys were the same guys that had worked on Sam Raimi's movie, Evil Dead movies, which are like the greatest horror movies of all time. And so I got to meet those guys, and I got in with them, started working, and eventually they were like, people would drop off because we're working for free. And they got to a point where they actually needed me because I would always show up, so they started paying me. So I got like $100 a week for gas, basically. And would show up and work on the movie. But it was literally a crash course in filmmaking. I did everything from sweeping the floor to building sets, doing creature stuff, camera work, lighting. And by the time it was over, I was shooting parts of the movie. So it was a great experience for me. We went to New York and finished the sound mix, and then it was done. And I was like, 9 months of work, and I don't have anything, and it's over. And I was like, I'm not going back to cabinet commercials and news or ENG. I'm going to go to LA. So I went to LA, packed up my bags, had about $500 in cash, credit cards, went out there. And I had met a production designer on another small movie for a few days while I was working on Mosquito. And I basically said, got in with him. He's like, hey, if you ever come out, give me a call. Got out to LA, gave him a call. And he said, yeah, come by Monday. You can start working on Monday. So I was like, great, I had a job instantly. So I went. It was basically a production designer, and it was like a set construction. And it was way different from Mosquito. These guys were like pros, and I could cut wood and swing a hammer, but these guys were professional guys. So I tried to keep up the best I could with them, and until one day when I had a measure once, cut multiple times, and screwed up a really expensive piece of plexiglass for the set. My boss is like, you're not a great carpenter. You want to move into the art department? We can put you in the art department. I was like, yeah, I'll do that. I'm back on set. So we would haul furniture to the sets. We'd dress the sets. I'd work with the art director. I'm painting, basically prepping the entire set for the movie shoot the next morning. And I did that for a while. I worked on a bunch of Showtime movies, Girls in Prison, some real classic ones, but it was a good experience. And again, it was kind of at the same point in my life where I was like, all right, I've kind of done this, I've tackled this, I want to move on and do something different. I'd really like to get back into effects. I really enjoyed that. So I was applying at effects companies, and one of them called me back, and it was a company called Amalgamated Dynamics. And they basically called me in and said, hey, we're looking for a guy who can do effects work and also has carpentry skills. And I was like, I got carpentry skills. I'm in. So this was my in. So I basically started working there. And the first movie we were working on was a movie called Mortal Kombat. It was 90, let's see here if I have it. You know what, I skipped over this. I want to show you Mosquito quickly. If you never saw Mosquito, this was Mosquito. Chainsaws, Mosquito, tents in the woods, blood and gore. So this is the movie that I actually worked on and put all my heart and soul into. That's me. That's one of the mosquitoes. I'm basically adding hair to the mosquito's head, basically doing the final touches on the mosquito. Another shot. There's a mosquito, and basically inside there's a motor, and there's wings that flap, and you can see the proboscis and the egg sac beneath them. So these were pretty big creatures. Here's a small scene from that movie so you get an idea of what it was like. Let's see if I have the volume. a Mac guy, sorry. That was my website, by the way. So I'm jumping all over the place. This is my IMDb page, Internet Movie Database, so you can basically, if you're bored, you can look at some of the movies I've worked on. Probably worked on over 100 movies. I've worked on about 8 or 9 of them that have been nominated for Academy Awards. I thought The Revenant was going to win a few years ago, and it didn't win. I thought that was going to be the best picture, but yeah, you can see Batman and Robin, horrible. Battlefield Earth, really bad. All kinds of good stuff in here. There's some good movies too. So anyways, let me get back to where I was with Mosquito. So yeah, that was basically Mosquito. I'm skipping around here. I just got hired by this visual effects company called Amalgamated Dynamics, and they're basically the guys that worked for Stan Winston. And Stan Winston, if you don't know who he is, he worked on The Terminator, Predator, some of the biggest monster movies of all time, basically doing makeup and visual effects. So one of the first movies I started working on was this movie called Mortal Kombat. There we go. And it was this creature called Goro. We had basically had a sculpting department. We had a design department, an animatronic department. Didn't have any computer stuff. This is way before any of that started. This is still in the early 90s. And it was basically a guy with 4 arms, completely made out of foam latex, rubber, and eventually put onto a guy into a suit. So half of him was animatronic, the other half was the actor, and the other half was basically a rubber monster. There he is. So the top part of his arms were
try
robotic.
that left, that soft left.
So this is where I basically worked every day. So I had these amazing guys that were doing robotics, and I was in the back doing fiberglass molds and foam latex, and I was learning basically everything. After this movie finished, we basically went on to the movie called Jumanji. Now, not the let me sum this up. Not the Jumanji I saw out in the hallway here that came out a few months ago. This is the original Jumanji with Robin Williams. That's how old I feel. But anyways, this is what I basically spent 9 months working on. Is this hydraulic crocodile, because Robin Williams had this battle with this thing and he had to ride on top of it. And we basically built it from scratch. It was hydraulics, it had to be waterproof. It was foam latex. There he is riding around on it. I was working on the crocodile, and there was other departments working on the lions and all different type of creatures. There was basically feeling it out, and made the fiberglass skeleton. This was the foam that went over the top of the fiberglass, and it was basically a 9-month-long process. One of the things about working in special effects, it's very similar to set construction, very similar to art department. It's a dirty job. Sawdust. You're working with wood all day. And that's set construction. I didn't really care for that. Art department, there's paint all over you, and you're doing creature effects. You're working with chemicals, toxic chemicals if you don't mix them correctly. So your clothes stink, and you're grinding fiberglass all day, and it was cool. I mean, I learned a lot, but I was like, okay, I'm at another point in my life. I'm like, been there, done that. I want to move on. I got to get into the digital part of visual effects. So Jumanji finished, and it was like another 9-10 month gig, and they didn't have a show after that, so they kind of laid off a bunch of people, and I was like, oh, hey, I'll go. I'm done. I need a break. And I started applying at digital places. I didn't have any luck. And all of a sudden, the producer from Mosquito called me. He moved back from New York to LA. He's like, hey, I'm working at a visual effects studio. They got an opening for a stage manager. Would you like to come out and check it out? I was like, yeah. It was basically in charge of the lighting department and the stages, production offices, basically the whole studio. I was the stage manager. I had already done that stuff on Mosquito, so it was like a perfect fit. And it was sort of a step into the digital world. So I started working there. One of the main things we did was called motion control. And if you don't know what motion control is, it's not motion capture. Motion capture came later, but motion control is, you have to sort of imagine the it's basically a giant robot, and it's got servo motors, and it can basically move very quickly along dolly track, and it's all completely programmable by a computer, and you can dolly, you can boom up and down, you can put the camera on its own axis, you can spin it, pan, tilt, roll, any direction, and it's all completely repeatable. So I could do one take and it would spin around and do all its angles. And you do another take and maybe move your actors around, and it would completely line up because it was a precision instrument. So we got involved with this. We did a lot of stop motion work. One of the first jobs I got was with an artist. His name is David Allen. He's a stop motion animator. He's probably other than Ray Harryhausen, he was probably the premier guy in the business as far as stop motion animation. So he's on the stage that I'm working on. I'm not doing the work. He's doing the work, but I'm sitting there soaking it up and really enjoying it. And eventually, I got into motion control, video assist, camera work, and started to basically work on set with motion control. Get back here for a second. Oh yeah, okay. All right. So, anyways, I was there for about 5 years, and basically every major visual effects movie came in and out of that place. It's called the Chandler Group. I worked on Armageddon, Godzilla, Alien Resurrection, all these big visual effects shots where they had spaceships flying through space that have to be shot at extremely with models and miniatures at low exposures, and we basically did everything there. So it was another crash course in a technique that I really had nothing about. I was in more of the special effects industry. So there I basically got onto a Mac. I had Adobe Premiere, Adobe After Effects, and I was sort of the on-set compositor editor. So as we would shoot, I would edit stuff in. I would do the composites on set, pull green screen mats. We did miniatures and pyrotechnics, and it was all done at the studio. So I really started to move into the digital side of things. I worked there for a couple years. And then all of a sudden the industry started to change around 2000. Computer software got better and better. These really expensive SGI computers that only a handful of companies in Los Angeles, they started tossing them out because the Macintoshes and PC desktop computers were just as fast. And all these little shops started opening up with visual effects. And it was at that point I was like, you know what? I'm good enough now where I can probably start my own company and start bidding shots for myself, the actual final work. So that's exactly what I did. I started bidding shots, doing shows, working out of my garage in my house, working on set, wherever the movie was, and eventually left the Chandler Group. Chandler Group went out of business a few months later, mainly because it wasn't practical to do things in motion control. Everything was being done CGI now. So that's when things really started to change. So basically, from that point on, I've sort of had my own little company, and I've done my own visual effects. And if some of you aren't familiar with visual effects, compositing, I'll show you a few examples of what I'm talking about. I'm sure a lot of you already know what visual effects are. One of the first things you got to ask yourself is, if it's going to be a visual effects shot, is, why does it have to be a visual effects shot? Can we just shoot it? Go outside and shoot it? Is it going to be possible? Obviously, we can't shoot dinosaurs. It's not possible. It's got to be a visual effects. So you got to ask yourself that. Is it affordable? If I have a battle scene and I need 50,000 actors to move to the right, and I need 50,000 actors to move to the left, and battle in full armor fatigue, actors don't work for $1 a day. So you're going to need $50,000, $100,000 easily just to do a shot like that. Now, if you don't have the money for that, well, then maybe you can say you have $10,000. Maybe you can give it to a visual effects artist, and he can recreate it that way. So you got to make sure it's affordable. And then the last thing is basically, is it safe? There's really no reason anyone should really get hurt in the movies anymore. It's with visual effects, everything it's completely streamlined. You can't just take Robert Downey Jr. and put him in a suit, fly him up in the sky, and let him go. Someone's going to die. So you gotta make sure it's safe. Other than that, it allows you to sort of control things and change things. Visual effects. As far as compositing goes, it's kind of like putting together a puzzle. It's multiple elements, multiple pieces. I may have a sky element. I may have a sunset. I may have trees. I may have a house, a building. All these different elements, all these different shots, and you're kind of basically taking them all and blending them into one final picture. So when people ask, I usually, that don't know anything about the business, I basically say it's kind of like putting together a puzzle. And it really is, because just an example of a movie that I worked on last year. You may have an element for a shot. So we have a inside of a dirty microwave. So this is one element, what I was talking about. And we also have another element, which is the outside with the door closed. And you'll have another element with our actor, who's got his palms on the glass. This is this is Kevin Smith. I don't know if you guys know who Kevin Smith was. He did the Mallrats movies and Clerks. This is his movie called Yoga Hosers, and he's making fun of Canadians and yoga. So it's kind of like a little Gulliver's Travelers movies, and he's dressed himself up, and he's called himself a Bratzi. So he's a half hot dog, half Nazi. And it's a crazy story. You'll have to rent it and watch it. But and then we have another element, and this is like some CG. What would be in a bratwurst? Sauerkraut. Why? I don't know. But so those are the elements we have, and we basically put it all together. And the final shot would look something like this. If I can get it to play. There we go. So he's inside the microwave. It's counting down. We're pushing in. And eventually, he explodes. Sauerkraut. So that, it's a comedy. It's a cheap gag. But you get the idea. It's not just one shot. It's multiple shots, multiple elements. I have another one here where the mop. Here we have. Here he is again. He's on a green screen. He's looking up at us, and got another plate, which is the actual ground where we need to put him on, and another plate with a mop, and another plate with sauerkraut again. And when we put it all together and color correct it, set the focus levels and everything, it should look something like this. He runs into the scene, and he gets smashed. So that's the idea behind this movie. It's all about sauerkraut and killing the hot dog man. So yeah, that's basically compositing in a nutshell. Um, I've been doing it since '95, off and on, but easily 25 years. I'll show you some of the movies that I've worked on. This is a movie called What Just Happened. I supervised this movie with De Niro. So this was, let's go back here. Oh, man. I'm a Mac guy, I'm sorry. I can't figure it out. All right, so they barely, never ever shoot movies, shoot scenes in the car anymore. Put a car on a trailer and drive it around, and put cameras on the trailer. It's almost a dead technology. Now everything is shot in front of a green screen, blue screen, all visual effects. So a lot of car shots. We do hundreds of car shots on different shows. So this is basically one of them with Robert De Niro in the back seat. All right, one more time. All right. So we shot this in L.A. in a sound studio, and then we shot this plate in Nice, France. He's on his way to the Cannes Film Festival. Another shot here. We have a blue screen shot. We shot this in California. They're supposed to be coming out of the Cannes Film Festival down the steps. So we went to a university with steps, and we hung up a blue screen. And they wanted to put the movie that they went behind to go see behind them. So they're basically walking out of the Cannes Film Fest. This is inside the theater. And they asked us to put the Cannes Palm logo behind them. And around the city of Nice, they wanted to dress the buildings and so forth with movie posters for this movie. It's basically a story about this. It's basically a story about making a really bad movie. And this was a Sean Penn movie called Fiercely. Here's where we shot the entire of the theater, and I had to basically go back and composite the movie on the screen. So the audience is watching this really bad movie, getting up and leaving. One of the climaxes of the scene is they actually kill this dog, and it's a big, audience didn't like it. We wanted to have the guy get hit by a bus. So we basically had him hit with a green screen mat. Here we have the kid who's supposed to swallow a hamburger. It's pretty much impossible to do. So he couldn't do it, so we replaced his mouth with a clean mouth. And you run the thing back and play it forward, and he basically swallows the burger. Meet the Browns. I used to do all of Tyler Perry's movies. I'm sure you've heard Medea's Family Reunion. This is Medea. If you don't know who she is, it's Tyler Perry. He dresses up as a woman. He also dresses up as a man. We basically composite the shot together to make it look like they're both inside the car at the same time. Kind of a lot of the stuff that Eddie Murphy does. So they're driving. Green screen behind them. Police cars are chasing them. Green screen shots. And Grandpa's throwing the weed out the window while Medea's trying to find an escape route. A movie called The Punisher. One of Marvel's first movies. This was a shot that they sort of stole from the Bourne Identity, jumping from building to building. It wasn't a little more low budget than Bourne Identity, and it basically jumps, and we basically painted out the wire. This was the villain. His name was Jigsaw, and they wanted us to burn him alive in the end of the movie because he doesn't look bad enough as he is. But they wanted us to put him on fire, so we basically had to add fire and track fire elements to his face. And as he eventually died, guns, exploding heads. We added blood sprays, stuff on the wall. You can see it. This guy actually didn't have a leg, so we blew off a fake leg, and he was in the ground. Here's a shot where we're in the back of we're basically looking through the actor through the windshield of the car, and what do you see? You see the lights, you see the camera and everything behind him. So we had to basically go back in and replace her sunglasses with reflection so it doesn't show the crew. It's very unprofessional. So we fixed that problem. It's a movie called My Best Friend's Girl, Dane Cook. The director had all these summertime shot plates that he wanted. The problem is they're summer, and he wanted them to be winter. So he wanted us to basically winterize them. So we went in and painted snow on the rooftops, had snow falling in the air, and in the end they sort of looked like this. It's completely changed the shots from a warm, sunny day to a cold, snowy day. So we did probably a sequence of about 10, 15 shots. And then he was like, yeah, I'm going to go back to summer. Don't change my mind. So basically all the work we did, nobody ever saw it. And all they showed was the summer plates. We got paid, but it hit the cutting room floor. Christmas Cottage, Kincaid. This was just like a sky replacement with the North Star that we did for them. Movie called War, Jet Li, Jason Statham. Did a bunch of effects stuff here. They're chasing each other across rooftops, and obviously if you jumped that high off the roof, you'd probably bust your legs easily, if not die. That's why there's the green pad down there. And we'll basically paint those out, remove those items from the set. Again, more green screen cars, Jet Li driving around. Jason Statham. And we're adding lights going over the top of the glass, a little camera shake, a little blur. Guy gets snapped in the head, more blood and gore, muzzle flash. Head's chopped off, gets stabbed in the arm. This was a fake sword. It's all fake. It's not real. It's all blood. All right, so this basically, obviously he didn't stab him in the arm with a real sword. So it was basically a half sword. So he basically stabbed him with the handle and about halfway down. So the actual tip of the sword didn't exist. So that's how it magically goes into his arm. And we basically play it, stick it in his arm, put a blood stain on it, throw some blood in the air, and he's missing an arm. So that's some of the stuff that I've done. Working in visual effects, they throw. At one point, it used to be all about doing an actual visual effect. Now, half the time we end up fixing things. There's another movie I did a few years back. It's called Abduction. This kid was the hottest actor in town, and his name was Taylor, the Teen Wolf guy. And so they're not going to let the hottest kid in Hollywood slide down a glass panel all by himself with no wires on him. So they got this is a technique called wire removal, where we actually go back in and remove all the wires to make it look like he's Macho Man and no fear at all. So there's the wires, and we go back and paint out the wires. Here he comes again, and we remove the wires. Again, just like I was saying before, they don't shoot cars on the streets anymore. It's roll it onto the stage and start shooting. Those little orange marks, if you don't know what those are tracking markers, and it sort of shows us the movement of the shot. So we record those orange tracking markers. So when we put the actual background behind there, it moves exactly how it should. And Sigourney Weaver, it looks like they're driving in the car. So again, the window's behind them. We zoom in on Taylor. All that's got to match. Otherwise, it doesn't. Otherwise, it looks fake, and you don't know exactly what's wrong with it. You just know it looks fake. There's another sequence. This is a green screen car in the daytime. How do you tell it's not green screen? We basically wrapped a window reflection over the front of the glass to help sell it, and then the green screen behind him. Planes, trains, automobiles. Now they're on a train. Let's fast forward to this makeout session. But yeah, there's a green screen out there. They're on the train. Here's another sequence. You can actually see the light. This is the full app of the shot. We actually, when the movie's released, we bring down a mat over the top of the shot, so you actually don't see it. But you can see a keynote light at the very top in the reflection. And we wrap reflections around the glass, make it look like they're actually driving the car. Bullets and guns. We do bullets and guns all the time. Ever since Brandon Lee was killed on set with guns, everything sort of changed after that. A lot of it changed with visual effects. We don't fire bullets anymore. We don't fire anything. It's all done in post with muzzle flashes. So we basically go in and add muzzle flashes, squib up the walls behind them. This was at a stadium they had rented. They had a few actors, but all the seats in the distance were empty. So we had to make it look like the entire stadium was full of people. So we basically tracked in crowds as you pan around the entire shot. So there's actually nobody out there, but we made it look like the stadium's full. And here's another shot where it's completely empty stadium, another one. This was a scene where, you know what this was? This was, they asked us to, let's fast forward to that. Oh, I know what it was. It had rained in the parking lot right now. It had rained during the scene, and there was water all over the parking lot, so we had to replace the concrete and make it look dry. If you go to the very end, you'll see a flash of wet pavement. So that was another effects problem we had to fix. This is a movie called Warrior, another crowd sequence. It's a UFC fighting. You notice all the blue empty seats, and now they're full with actors. So we basically go in, and this particular shot here, it's very black in the upper decks. There's only a few people around the bottom of the ring, and then we go back and track in the actors and make it feel like it's a full arena, full crowd. Tom Hardy, and there's another sequence where it's all empty seats. Okay. Let's take a look at some more shots of yoga hosers. Hot dog guys. Climbing out of the guy's mouth, he's stuck in his throat. We saw this shot with the exploding sauerkraut. What else do we have here? This is like multiple Bratzies running around while our actors are fighting. Yeah. There's a box full of Bratzies. Some toilet humor. But very reminiscent to the movie Gulliver's Travel. A lot of these movies, they don't have a lot of money, so we kind of do the best that we can with the budgets that they have. So they want to do a lot of elaborate effects, and it doesn't always work out that way. It's time, money, and quality. That's what it boils down to. You haven't lived until you worked with on Miley Cyrus movie. So we had this shot. They wanted to shoot in this house. It's a historic house, and they couldn't get it wet. They wanted the sprinklers to go off, so we basically had them with a Hudson sprayer walk around. I hit the wrong button. So basically, we wet them down on the set, so they looked little bit wet, and then we added digital rain over the top of the entire shot to make it feel like they're actually getting sprinkled on. What's that? Let's see. We have. It doesn't like that one. It's a movie called The Next 3 Days I did with Russell Crowe. They did a sequence where he had blood on his face, and they wanted to use it in a different part of the movie. So they basically asked me to remove the blood that was on his face. So I had to remove the blood from one scene and add it to another. So there's the blood, and I basically had to remove it. And the next shot, that's the final. Another shot, they same deal. He had marks on his face. He couldn't have it. They also made me change his clothes. He was supposed to have cuts on his face in this shot, so we had to go back in and track all the cuts on his lip and his forehead in these shots. This was a matte painting shot. It's supposed to be fall time. They wanted it to feel a lot of color. You can see all these trees are really dead, so we had to go back in and track in leaves and all the trees to give it a fall look feel. The production designer said, "Well, we'll tie some leaves to the trees, and with the PAs, then it'll be good." Well, it wasn't good. It didn't look very well, so we had to go back and digitally color correct the trees and to give it that autumn feel. Same here. Tied a few leaves to the trees. Didn't really work. Said they'll fix it in post, and that's when we ended up fixing it. There's the trees. Let's see. Let's show you a few more things. Melissa will like this one. We had a movie called The Crew, and these mafia guys threw this rat in the house. They tied a rag to it and lit it on fire, and the mouse runs through the house and burns the old lady's house down that they're trying to collect the insurance premium on. And mouse runs out. We had to basically track this fireball to the back of this mouse as he runs around burning down the mansion. Just bikinis. Sci-fi movie called The Axe Giant. It's a guy in a green screen suit, similar to Goro. Basically, he's in front of a green screen, and we blew up the shot to make him look much larger than he is. Shot from low angles. So basically a giant. He's supposed to be Paul Bunyan at one point, but the Sci-Fi Channel renamed the movie Axe Giant. They like that better. It's a little bit of cheesy movie. Footloose, the remake. So we did the title sequence, Footloose, and then we rotated the legs over the top of to give it some depth, give it a little different look. These are typical visual effects shots with sign changes. There's an actual sign there, but it doesn't say Beaumont, so we basically changed the sign. Photos in the booth, we composited over the top of the other photos. These are rig removals, cameras that are on the buses that can't be seen in the movie. This is the main part of the movie. There's a sequence where she's playing chicken with a train, and we added flares to the train to make the train look more menacing as it's approaching. Some light ray effects, and she dives out of the way at the last second. Some sparks on the track. Anything we could do to make the train sequence a little more exciting. You walk out, and Beaumont. Didn't say Beaumont on the tower, so we changed that. Last Stand. I've worked on several Schwarzenegger movies. Again, these are car shots, green screen. Arnold, I worked on The Sixth Day, The End of Days, The Last Stand. Arnold's got plenty of visual effects movies. And these are more car process shots. When you're doing these shots, you have to be concerned with hair detail in certain scenes. His hair may be very sharp, but down by his shoulder and over by the door, it's soft. So it's not just one mat. You're pulling multiple mats to get a decent-looking key. probably a little technical, but this is a movie we worked on with Tom Cruise. Again, we're green screen movie sets. They're supposed to be in Afghanistan. It's a movie about a sniper that goes on a killing rampage. So these were all green screen shots. And we did a lot of, the director wanted to do some cool stuff with rifle scopes. We're actually looking through the rifle scopes. So we gave him some different looks, and they ended up using one of our looks for the effects, as he basically opens up his rifle and then starts taking guys out. We did versions where there's no blood for for TV, and then there's the movie versions that actually have blood. Tom Cruise. Every time you see a TV in the shot, that's usually another green screen giveaway. They very easy to do. You can always change them, and you're not locked into the shot. I do a lot of TV composites. Fight scene. Tom Cruise starts fighting them. We're putting blood on their nose and their back of their heads, and he's smacking them down. So we're making it a little more bloody, a little more violent. Muzzle flash. We did the big car chase scene, and every shot in the movie, Tom Cruise likes to do his own stunts, so they wanted to show that he's actually driving. So they had all these shots when he's driving, and you can't see it here, but there was actually a light, and then you can see because it's shining on his face. Because he wanted to be seen. He wants the audience to know that he's driving. So we had to go in and paint out that light on every single frame of the movie whenever he's driving a car. They didn't have a better solution for that. I got a few more here. I'm going to show you the. This is a scene about his girlfriend turns into a zombie, and they try to calm her down by attaching a stove to the back of her. And we had to replace the back of the stove and make it look like a real stove, because this right here doesn't look real. So they basically gutted the entire part of the stove, and we put a CG stove on the back of it. He's basically luring his girlfriend to the cliff so he can kill her and push her down the cliff. You can see all the great movies that I work on. The Revenant. This is a movie I worked on not too long ago. We did a lot of muzzle effects. Guys getting shot in the woods. We're putting blood on Leo's face as he's running around. Guys getting shot. Another problem what they had with this movie is they had all these shots in the snow, and the snow was melting, so we had to composite in snow in existing spots to make it actually feel like they were way up in Alaska. This was a head replacement they put on one of the guys who gets killed in the movie. We had to basically track and green screen that entire shot. I could go all night. But this is basically what I do. This is visual effects. I do a mixture of 2D and 3D effects. I guess at this point, if you guys have any questions, hit me up. Zero Dark 30, yeah. Zero Dark 30. Let's see, where is it? There it is. So this, we did a lot of computer screen stuff, maps. They're always cutting and they're searching for bin Laden. They're zooming the satellite down. So this is all motion graphic work. Just satellite views. We're punching in on stuff. It's an intense part of the movie. Things are changing. And here we're basically painting out people that shouldn't be on the set that weren't supposed to be in the scenes. We removed a lot of people. We had some buildings along the skyline that weren't supposed to be there, skyscrapers. We removed those to make it more of a Afghanistan feel. Again, more motion graphics. But yeah, that's basically it.
Thank you, Mike. Maybe just one question.
Yes.
tracking your career, it certainly doesn't seem like it's, at least it doesn't sound like it's a straight line, right? I mean, you
No,
started and
no.
you
Yes.
kind of.
Every bridge led to a different spot, yes.
Right. What do you think, what's the characteristic that allowed you to sort of have this career arc that you've had so far?
Yeah, it's kind of like just be willing to do different stuff. Like I said before, you got to wear a lot of hats. I really, I just made myself available to do as much as I possibly could and find things that I excelled at, and eventually found my way into visual effects. So don't be afraid to change careers.
All right, very good. Thank you. I also want to, while Mike's up here, I just want to recognize that every year the College of Education and Human Services recognizes an outstanding alumni. And this year at the awards banquet on the 28th, we'll be recognizing Mike as the outstanding alumni for the College of Education and Human Services. So I just want to congratulate you, Mike, on that.
Thank you very much. Very cool.